what is it inside that people get so offended
by your mere existence?
Give it a second. The trauma's going to pop right back up.
A very stupid producer I once worked with said, "I've seen your mother. You're not Jewish."
You know, I've been called a grifter, told I'm not a real Jew.
Why are we pushing our own people out? It makes absolutely no sense to me.
Weitzman Museum friends, please welcome Jonah Platt.
Hello, hello. Thank you. Wow, thank you so much. You guys. I feel the Philadelphia love. I love it. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. It is so fantastic to be with you all here tonight in a city that is so near and dear to my heart. As a graduate, as Dan mentioned, of the college formerly known as the Juniversity of Pennsylvania, I have spent many a month in this fair city, so I'm thrilled to be here in Philly at the Weitzman doing my first ever East Coast Being Jewish with Jonah Platt live. So the museum is actually the perfect location for tonight's conversation because my show, like the Weitzman, is all about who Jews are, how we feel, what we think, how we live. That's what live means, right? It means alive. We're alive. We're here. We are together. And of the many other things that you could be doing tonight, you have chosen to be here, to engage in a conversation about what it means to be Jewish today in America in 2025. Your choice to actively participate in Jewish life, those of you here in the audience and those of you watching this at home, is not something I want to leave unappreciated. Whether you're a Jew in search of community or a way to deepen your sense of your own identity, or you're a non-Jew who's looking to learn and hold hands with your Jewish brothers and sisters, your presence here makes you a leader. Okay, you are intentionally getting off your butts and you are making an investment of your time and your energy in something meaningful and real. Choosing to engage is the only way that we will ever change our status quo. And by you being here or tuning in, you are taking a step towards doing just that. And for that, I would like you to all give yourselves a big round of applause. Truly. And with that, it's time for the main event. Weighing in. No, I'm just kidding. They would kill me if I did that. My guests tonight are two extraordinary women, not just for their myriad accomplishments or for their impressive eloquence on very sensitive topics or for their beauty in front of a camera, but because, like all of you, they choose to engage when they do not have to. They don't shy from difficult work of public discourse or thoughtful self-examination or leading others through their own example of what it looks like to be confident, clear, and proud of one's unique identity and heritage. My first guest is a film and TV actress best known for her award-winning work on the FX series Reservation Dogs. She also makes handmade dream catchers, and her latest film, The Floaters, is all about Jewish summer camp. Yeah, Kibbutz 2025. My second guest is a fashion model turned full-time activist who uses her voice to educate, advocate, and empower Jews, indigenous communities, and indigenous folks like herself. No matter how heated the conversation, she always keeps it cool, calm, and collected. Emphasis on cool. They're smart, they're strong, and they give member of the tribe a whole new meaning. Please welcome Sarah Podemski and Lani Anpo. Welcome. Thank you. All right, welcome, ladies. It's such a pleasure to have you both here. Thank you for being here tonight.
This is so exciting.
I'm so excited. Thank you for having us.
Oh, you're so welcome. So in the Platt family, when we are saying something that's unequivocally true, like that you cannot be lying about, we say WOH, which stands for Word of Honor. And WOH, I have been thinking about wanting to do this conversation for like a year. Obviously, you're both very impressive and interesting people, but also, according to my best friend ChatGPT, less than 1% of Jews in the US and Canada identify as both Jewish and Native. That's like a couple thousand people on Earth. So you guys are unicorns. How does that feel? I mean, do you feel like I am this unicorn?
I do identify as a unicorn.
I mean, no, please.
I mean, I actually meet like Native Jews like every once in a while, and it is this like mitzvah, and you're just like, oh my goodness, this is wild. What is your story, and how did you become this? So it's like a special little celebratory thing, like when we meet other people in the community, because it feels very rare, but then it also feels like so in alignment sometimes, like the two cultures. So yeah,
I get that. I mean, we're definitely going to dig into these parallels.
I find that like that idea of, non-Native people who feel connected to the Native community, they really identify with this idea of just how we build our communities and how we build our family structures and how important it is, our relationship with the Creator and with the land.
Yeah.
I think that's something that people also aspire to and find really inspiring.
I would agree with that. Lani, you've been pointed in saying that you're not part Native, part Jewish. You are 100% Native. You are 100% Jewish. Why is that important to you to articulate? And how do we flip that switch for people who are thinking of themselves as, oh, I'm half of something, I'm half of something?
For me, being mixed has been a huge challenge throughout most of my life. When I was younger, I was met with a lot of blood quantum rhetoric. So being mixed meant that I was less Native. And there's this idea that being mixed means you're automatically less of whatever you're mixed with. And that's just not scientifically true.
It's not any kind of true.
Any kind of true. And my identity, because of my experience, has been a very deep-rooted challenge for me. And as I started reconnecting with my Jewish side, and as well as my Native side, it was really important to me to represent the connection in myself as being whole, because I know that there's so many other people, especially youth, who face that same challenge every day and feeling like they're less than because they're not full-blooded.
Yeah, I mean, I have that same conversation with anybody who says sort of they're half Jewish. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're the whole shebang.
You're all Jewish. Yeah.
Right? You used a phrase in there that I hadn't heard before, blood quantum. What I've not heard that.
Blood quantum is a system that was created by the U.S. government to control Native populations and breed Native populations out of existence. Have you heard of the one drop rule, where
No.
if you're one drop of black, you're black? It was the opposite for Native communities. So whatever you were mixed with as a Native, whether it was being black or whether it was being white in the racial structure here in America, it meant that you were less Native. And this helped control the populations of each tribal nation and allowed the US government to basically violate treaties, or what's the right word?
I was going to say dick around, but void treaties.
Exactly that.
Very big dicking around.
Yeah.
Very big, yeah. Blood quantum is something that I've had to hear about and deal with my whole life, and it's something that I think really impacts the Native communities still to this day.
Sure.
I just want to add something, because for me in Canada, it's not the same as the US coming to Canada, but my mom is 100% indigenous. That's how we would call her, full-blooded Indian. So I had to provide a letter from my band, my reserve, that said that I was 51% Native to get a status card so that I could have rights in America to cross the border without a problem, because that was a treaty, the Jay Treaty. But this is a blood quantum letter. So this is what Native people travel with. It's a blood quantum letter that lets the US Border and Customs know if you are legally a Native person that can move back and forth in the border. It's like an everyday conversation kind of thing for people in the community. It doesn't work the other way. Native Americans can't go to Canada.
Wow. The more you know.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Getting back to just sort of talking about the parallels between the Jewish tribe and the native tribes, a lot in common. And the operative word is tribe. They're both tribal, shared language, shared homeland, shared culture, shared oral history, and yes, religion is generally a piece of that. Lani, you've actually gotten a lot of Jew hate from indigenous communities, which I know is especially disappointing for you. Why don't you think our similarities are translating between Jews and indigenous people?
What I can make of the situation is a lot of indigenous communities here in the U.S., our understanding of Jewish history and Jewish people comes through a Christian lens. There's a very distorted and limited expression of Jewish peoplehood. I think that very few Native Americans or indigenous people here in the Americas have been exposed to anything beyond the Eurocentric narrative.
Right, the flattening of Jews into a religious group like Christians or something. Sarah, when you've spoken publicly, especially around Israel and Palestine stuff, you've been really measured and peace focused. And the word I like to use is bulletproof, at least in my eyes. It seems very well communicated. Do you get hate for that, even though it's as I'm describing, or do you feel like people respect the way that you've approached these conversations?
I think there's going to be people upset with whatever you say at this time. Since October 7th, I found that no matter myself and my sisters, I think we grew up in a home where my dad worked for Givat Chaviva, which was a big organization for peace. I lived in Israel. My sister Jen lived in Israel. Half of our family lived in Israel. My grandfather's a Holocaust survivor. We grew up in an environment where we constantly spoke about peace. So that's the only real thing that I know how to communicate it about.
And you do it very well.
I appreciate you saying that, but it's definitely every time we say anything, there's going to be people that aren't interested, that you're either not on one side enough or you're not on the other side, and you're not dealing with the specifics, and you can't just say peace. And it's tough.
That's so annoying, because the way that you do approach it, and you can all go check out her Instagram, you stick up for Israel, you point out all the things that somebody who supports Israel would want to point out, and you're not anti-Palestinian as you do it, and you are supportive of peace and their freedom and existence in a way that seems very reasonable to me.
It seems reasonable.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into your families a little bit. So you said your mother is 100% Native.
Yeah.
Help me decipher this, because here's what we found researching your mom.
Oh,
We've got Saulteaux Heritage, Musqueam Pitong First Nation, Ojibwe, and Anishinaabe.
Anishinaabe.
So what did I just say? What are those words?
So Saulteaux is the Ojibwe part. Musqueam is the reservation, the reserve. And Anishinaabe, I believe, means our people. So my mom's reserve is near Regina in Saskatchewan. In America, you would call it Regina, but it's Regina.
It's like a middle schooler over here. So I'm sorry. Wait, what's it called again?
Regina? Have you heard of Regina? I think Anishinaabe is the one that I would refer to just because Saulteaux was given to us. There's a lot of names that were given and translated from either French or English. So I would say that Anishinaabe is the one that we would use to describe ourselves. And also, I think too, there's a big push to really honor those nuances in our communities, because this idea, we use words like indigenous or Native American, but there's hundreds of communities that most people don't know of. So I think there's a great push to be very specific about what community that you come from.
Totally. That's why I needed you to break down the taxonomy for me. Your parents were divorced when you were young. Is your mother still a big part of your life? Because I know you were raised primarily by your father.
Yeah, she wasn't for a little bit. She came from a lot of trauma, and I think we're all very grateful that we're at a point where she has, such a close relationship with our children, and that we've been able to be in community with her, that she's been able to participate in our success as, indigenous actors and, performers, and that we've been able to participate kind of in telling the story of our family. My sister specifically, Jen, who has a show called Little Bird, which is just this beautiful show and, took a lot from, the community that we're from. So I think it's really beautiful to be able to experience that with my mom now. So we are at the point where, the good part, the good part. And my father too, like even when they were divorced, like my father was very supportive of us continuing this relationship and, being in community. So we're very lucky, because I know that that's not sometimes the case. We're just happy that, we have such a close relationship with her now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Lani, you're also Native through your mother, and you describe yourself as multi-tribal. Yeah, up top. Member of the MHA Nation, the Sikangu Lakota Nation, Sanish, and Hidatsa. Did I get them all?
You got them all. The pronunciation.
Yes, I don't know.
We'll work on it.
Teach me. Teach me.
Mandan, MHA Nation is Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara, which Arikara is also a name given to us, I believe. It's actually Sanish. You were very close.
Okay,
yeah,
not bad.
Very.
What does multi-tribal mean in the context of your family?
Well, I descend from multiple tribes. Those are all distinct tribes.
Do you know the tracks, or you just have been told this is where we come from?
I do have my family tree.
Nice.
Growing up, we always identified as Lakota. It wasn't until recently when I started reconnecting that I found out that we weren't enrolled with the Lakota tribe. We were enrolled with MHA Nation. But I do have family lineage from all four.
When you say enrolled, what does that mean?
The U.S. government requires tribes to enroll their members, originally so the U.S. could track the population of each tribe, because once a tribe was below a certain number, it was deemed extinct, and therefore they didn't have to uphold any treaties, which they don't really do anyways. So I'm not sure why that matters. But now the tribes have some sovereignty over their enrollment. They determine who is and who is not part of their tribe. Each tribe has its own rules. So a lot of tribes, you can only be enrolled with one tribe. MHA Nation is 3 tribes together. They created a tribal affiliation. But that's part of how blood quantum and enrollment was used to minimize the indigenous populations here, is by only permitting people to be enrolled with one tribe. So even if someone is 100% Native, but they're 100% Lakota and 100% Mandan, they can only be 50% of one.
I'm sensing a theme.
Yeah.
So both of you, your fathers are Jewish, but very different way that was expressed in your lives coming up. Sarah, as you mentioned, your father, born in Israel to a Polish Holocaust survivor. How much does being a 3G define your experience and your identity?
It defines like everything, because the lens that I live and work and exist from is so much tied to this legacy that I feel from both sides. The fact that my mother's parents survived residential school in Canada and my grandfather survived the Holocaust, it's a big responsibility to say, like, yeah, so there's a reason that you're here, and don't take that for granted. And also I'm very lucky because my Saba was very vocal and very included us in his stories and his history.
I know you went to Germany and Poland with him, right?
Yeah. So being able to have someone who was open to talk about that and be able to hear, his personal stories, I think is just, it just opened a world for me to understand things that I don't think I would have if I didn't have him as a Jew. And I'm very grateful for that. He always used the word continuity, and that's like something that's really big, I think, in mine and my sister's vocabulary, especially when we're speaking about our blood, like this continuity of it's all kind of coming together always in parallel with everything. It's always coming back to kind of this existence.
Lani, like Sarah, your father's family also fled violence. They fled from Russia, the pogroms, 1905. How much do you know about that from your family, or are just learning sort of on your own now as you reconnect?
I knew very little growing up. My dad always said that we were Jewish, but I had no connection with his side of the family. And other than him claiming to be Jewish, always claiming that, we had no cultural connection, no cultural influence. And so I had a lot of misconceptions about being Jewish. I thought it was just a religion. I had a lot of skepticism about claiming my Jewish side. And actually, my mom is also Jewish.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. My mom's dad is Native, and her mom is Jewish, but we didn't know her mom. Her mom abandoned her when she was around 3 years old. So we knew nothing about her until I did an ancestry test, and it came back that her mom was Jewish and also my dad was Jewish, and that was the first time that I was like, if it's just a religion, why is it coming up on my DNA test?
Yeah.
And that's actually what led me to start exploring my Jewish heritage.
Wow. And how did you begin that journey? Like, what was the first step?
I had just gotten out of a very toxic, abusive relationship. I had moved to California to find myself, and my modeling agency told me I needed to be more active on social media. And I was receiving so much hate for being mixed, and just for, I don't know, the things that people want to hate.
Just putting yourself up, saying, hello, I'm Lani, and you're getting hate.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot to it. I've always kind of used my platforms for some level of advocacy. And I received a ton of hate. It really amplified a lot of wounds that I had buried, a lot of childhood wounds that I had buried. And I fell into a very deep depression and had what I can only describe as an identity crisis. I had become very disconnected from my Native side, so I felt a lot of imposter syndrome. I never felt comfortable identifying as white, and I was being bombarded with, you're white, you're not a real Native, you're mixed, you're white online. And all of this just, for whatever reason, led me to take an ancestry test. When I found out that I was Jewish, and it sparked that inquisitive feeling to understand more about what it meant, because, like I said, I thought it was just a religion. I just started researching random things online and came to understand that the Jewish people are an indigenous people from Israel. As I was researching more and more into the history, I started to see so many similarities between my Native side and my Jewish side, and I started to ask more questions about my dad's side of the family through, not my dad, we don't speak, but through his mom. I reconnected with his mom, and before she passed, I started asking her more questions. She was very uncomfortable answering questions about being Jewish. It's something that she had sort of tried to hide. She converted to Christianity. And when I told her what I was doing, she got very nervous.
Do you have a sense of why and what that was about for her?
Her mom was Jewish and her grandmother was Jewish. They came over in 1905, and they were very secretive about practicing Judaism. They didn't allow her to be involved in any of it. And as she was growing up, she was still targeted for being Jewish. The other kids on the block weren't allowed to play with her. People would throw rocks at her. The neighbors would call her a heathen and a dirty Jew, and a little girl that she wanted to be friends with. There was a time when they were outside playing together, and the other girl's mom came outside and yanked her away and scolded her for playing with my grandmother, and said you're not allowed to play with that heathen or whatever word she used. And the little girl asked, well, if she comes to church with us, can we be friends? And her mom allowed it, and she ended up converting to Christianity. And I think from that point on, even though she still experienced anti-Semitism throughout her life, she continued to try to hide the fact that she was Jewish. And so by the time it got to us, we knew nothing.
Wow. We've been talking about some of the parallels between the two communities. Let's get a little specific. Are there any holidays, rituals, ideas that sort of remind you of each other from your two communities?
I mean, the singing and the dancing.
Yeah.
We all love singing and dancing. It's in our bones.
I was watching an episode of Reservation Dogs when Mabel dies, and the way they're gathered around her and singing, and it felt so familiar. The connectedness, and it was the praying. I mean, it seems like it had to have been some kind of prayer. It felt like people gathering around to say Kaddish or something over somebody. It was really moving, and I totally felt that.
I always when I hear a drum group, I always cry. And then, when I hear someone sing in synagogue, I also cry. It invokes the same thing about just how we connect to Creator through song and music. And that I just think is really powerful and has just always made me feel connected to Creator.
Love that.
Yeah.
Lani?
What I've found very comforting is as I'm learning slowly about the different traditions and holidays and ceremonies, is how deeply rooted they are in the land and in the oral history of our people. And I think that's one thing that a lot of indigenous people here don't know, again, because they learn about Judaism through the lens of Christianity, and it's just different.
You learned that you were Jewish through both of your parents, but for a while, you thought you were a patrilineal Jew. Sarah, you're a patrilineal Jew. Have you had any issue with acceptance within the Jewish community because of either your indigenous side or the patrilinealness? It's one of the things that bothers me the most.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious what your experience has been.
I haven't, I know it exists. I haven't personally experienced it.
Great.
I did, we were converted when I was very young, but that was something that I think was important to him or the family. And then I had this very interesting conversation with Rabbi Shira Stutman, who I met through the Weitzman 3 years ago.
Shout out to Rabbi Shira.
Yeah, I believe that we chatted about Judaism originally being patrilineal.
That's correct.
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
yeah,
great.
The forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, it was patrilineal.
And then it changed somewhere.
And then it flipped in the exile period when Jews had been sort of kicked out and had started to intermarry and mix around, and then they were starting to come back, and the rabbis were like, "Oh, we gotta make sure we know who's who here, so it's got to come through the mom."
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Terrible. You can't trust women. No.
And now, I feel like, okay, now it's 2025. Let's change it again.
I thought
it's not really serving us.
I just thought that was so interesting because it just shows you that, this oral history, it becomes so set in stone, and there's very little flexibility, and that we get so attached to these ideas, and even this idea of being half Jewish or something. And also Shira told me, because I said I was half Jewish, she's like, that's not a thing, being half Jewish. So it is. When I heard that, it kind of made me feel seen in the way that I always felt. I didn't need anyone to prove it, but it was just why does it need to be something that's named and that people really believe in?
Yeah.
So I haven't personally had anyone, attack me with that, but it was definitely something I knew of. And, actually, sorry, a very stupid producer I once worked with said, "I've seen your mother, you're not Jewish." That did happen to me. Sorry, I put that somewhere very far back in my memory.
You're welcome.
Yes. just bringing up trauma. But yeah, so that was the only time. And I was just like, what a thing to say to someone. Like, what is that? And I think that's so interesting too. Like, what is it inside that people get so offended by what we're
By your
saying,
mere existence?
our lived experience.
So defensive.
Yeah,
about
like
it.
I found it so fascinating because he was just so adamant that like he knew who I was and who my mother was and who my family was, and it was like just such an aha moment of like, whoa, I didn't even do anything, and he seems so like riled up about me being Jewish or not Jewish.
It's lame. It's an issue.
It was so weird. Yeah, it was very
something
strange.
that I hope over the next generation of American Jewry, it's something we're going to deal with, because it is time to get rid of that one. Lani, have you faced any sort of experience to this nature? Yeah.
I have not experienced, that I can think of, anything about being a patrilineal Jew.
Just give it a second. The trauma's going to pop right back up. Yeah.
But I've been called a grifter. I've been, told I'm not a real Jew because I wasn't raised with any cultural influence or awareness. I've been told that, I'm only claiming my Jewishness now for money and fame.
How's that working out for you?
Not very well. Not very well.
That's
fact,
always my
I'm gonna
favorite
put a
one. It's
tip
like, oh, you're
jar.
just doing it for the money. I'm like, no one is doing this for the money. No.
If only.
Sometimes you can't pay us enough to be Jewish
Right.
No,
to
there's-
have to like deal with what we do.
We want to be a bigger, more unified, stronger community. Like, why are we pushing our own people out? It makes absolutely no sense to me. I hate it. You both have sisters. What's another thing you have in common? Do your sisters identify with themselves the same way that you two identify with yourselves, or are there differences between y'all?
There are differences. We all acknowledge our Jewishness. We've all always grown up claiming and knowing and identifying as Native and Jewish. But I would say that we're each on our own journey of personal acceptance of and how we express that.
So, like, where would you say, if this is the Jewish journey, like, where are you and where are your sibs?
I'm so far ahead of
You're
all
so
of
far
them.
ahead. All right.
I'm definitely winning.
Yeah. Only winners on this show.
That's right.
Sarah, what about you? I know you have two sisters.
Yeah. I think we're in alignment. I think too, because we've just spent our whole careers kind of like defending ourselves, in terms of, are we Native enough, to be in front of the camera as Native actresses. And I mean, I experienced it through them, and then I experienced it myself. So like, we're pretty much a tight-knit, group.
Can you say a little bit more about what you just mentioned before that about, having to pass a test to be Native on camera? I would love for you to speak more about that.
Well, I would call myself like a white passing Native person. I would say in the community, people would call me that. I've been called it to my face. It's something that's a thing. I, understand that I benefit from privileges because of the color of my skin. So that's just something that's in the ether of my career. Like, it's something that's always like looming a bit. I think, growing up, I didn't maybe feel Native enough, or didn't feel like I could have a voice because I wasn't like walking in the same shoes that a lot of Native women are, have to deal with, or issues. And then I went to Muscatine, my mom's reserve, and I looked around. It was the first time I went there in my 20s, and every woman looked like me. They're all, say 100% Native, or what you would, blood quantum wise describe them. And I think that kind of changed my perception of how I viewed myself. And I find it so funny about like this Jewish conversation, because I feel like in the last, almost 2 years, I have felt even more confident in my identity because of what I've had to kind of deal with growing up, of not feeling enough of each. And even in, the space of, we have a lot of people that pretend to be Native. They're called pretendians. And then I see these people.
What does that mean?
Ooh, it means someone who pretends to be an Indian.
But like in what context?
Like to further their career. There's a lot of them in education. There's a lot of them in Hollywood.
What sort of opportunities are afforded because they're passing in this way?
In Canada specifically, there's a lot of funding and a lot of money and grants for Native people who are doing some, either research or working in communities, so people lie about their identity, or they really do believe, they feel like their family lore is true, and they continue to present themselves in the community and take jobs and take opportunities, take money. Same thing with film. In film and television, there's a lot of government funding for Indigenous filmmakers, so we see a lot of that in Hollywood as well.
It seems like both of you are so undeterred by whatever negativity or questioning has come at you. What's safeguarded you from, succumbing to those doubts or that questioning, and how you continue to just do you?
I don't know how you feel, but I wouldn't say I'm unbothered or
well, not unbothered, but undeterred in what
undeterred,
being who you want to be and doing what you want to do.
It's resistance to erasure. It's a responsibility of claiming our identity and not allowing external forces to erase us. And I feel that responsibility both as a Native American and as a Jewish woman.
To those who came before you, or just, self-respect?
Those who came before me, and those who are going to come after me.
Sarah, same question.
I don't think I could do it without the support of my sisters and my family. Having similar lived experiences with people makes everything much easier to deal with, but we have tears about it. This last almost 2 years has been tough in our communities because of where we sit, in the Native community. And it's on this kind of precipice of, could you finish
more
that?
trauma?
Yeah. But it's if you don't have some kind of support or people that are on this journey, it's very easy to get lost in it. And I think so, even though we, talk about it on a regular basis, and there has been lots of tears over it over the years, we're at least in it together, which helps.
Always.
As a sibling, This is, right?
Yeah, I get that. So Sarah, let's go back a little bit to the Israel part of your identity. How much is it part of your identity? How much do you feel Israeli?
I mean, I don't feel Israeli because I don't want to take up that space to people who have that lived experience.
Sure. Well,
but
I guess how much does it feel like part of your family heritage?
I mean, it's been a big part of my family. The first time I went there, I was 4. And then we went, all throughout my I guess, adolescence. And then I ended up going to school on Kibbutz Beit HaShita. My dad moved back to Israel with me for a year. It was such a pivotal point in my development that it's always been held very dear to me. And it's always been a place that I just loved. I loved the vibrancy. I loved the culture. I loved the food. I loved everything about it. I loved going there. It's such an incredible place. But living and growing up in a family that spoke about peace and understanding what was happening, in the settlements in Gaza with Palestinians, that always I held that very close to me as well, knowing that just like every other country, it's not perfect. We have a lot of trauma, and there's many people that have a right to live, peacefully with integrity. The same with any country we speak of, that's, riddled with history and trauma. So we were always able to hold space for that, but I could also I know it's very difficult for a lot of people at this time, but like I was always able to hold space for those two ideas, that I could love a place so dearly and feel so connected when I'm there and feel like I'm home, and also know that there's people that are suffering in a way that I can't imagine.
Like you said, it's a country.
Yeah.
And we can all feel that way about our own countries, wherever we live. I just want to jump back for a second, then Lani, I'll get to you. What was it like living on a kibbutz for a year as a teenager?
Oh my God, it was crazy.
What did they have you doing?
First of all, we were the pickle kibbutz. We were the pickles, Beirashita pickles, which are delicious.
Nice.
I mean, it's so hard to describe living on a kibbutz at that age. And like, you know, it's so different culturally. It's like nothing really. I came back to Canada and like people wouldn't be able to wrap their heads around like the diversity of the community and the way that, you know, there was just like a sense of independence. People are a bit more mature there. All my friends were in the army. Like there was just this kind of like intensity of people living because they didn't know what was going to happen the next day. And then like being at the bus stop and like them there being like a, you know, like a bomb warning. And so you're like living in this weird, like upside down world, but it's so normal. So it was like really shocking as like a young Canadian. It was indescribable. Like it was like being home kind of thing.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Lani, when we had Van Jones on my show last year, he said that, you know, people are misconstruing this conflict as a people versus a people. It's really about two indigenous peoples in one land. You speak so much about indigeneity online and on your platform. Are both peoples, in your mind, indigenous to the land as you understand it to be?
The term indigenous has evolved. It's modern political form. I reference UNDRIP. It's the United Nations Declaration of Rights for Indigenous People. And it describes Indigenous people as people who have maintained or revived their pre-invasion peoplehood, identity, culture, language, systems of self-governance that are distinct from the colonial or imperial dominant society. So based on that definition, no, both people are not indigenous, but both people are, in the general sense, native to the land. Palestinians, they descend from a multitude of pre-Arab indigenous societies from across the region, all the way from North Africa, all the way across the Middle East, who have migrated into the Levant. And there's also many who have actual indigenous roots in the Levant. But they have been Arabized and Islamized, and they align themselves with the Arab identity and political agenda, and that's not an indigenous nation or people. It's the dominant imperial society. But that doesn't mean that they don't have a right to self-determination or to develop their own peoplehood or nationhood. And it definitely doesn't mean that they don't have the right to live with safety and dignity. Both people, you know, when we look at the history of the land, all the way back as far as we can, we're both deeply, deeply connected to one another and to the land. And we have to find a way to keep that connection between us at the forefront of our mind and of the discussions around the current conflict.
Thank you, Professor. Lani, you've said before, instead of questioning the Jewish connection to Israel, indigenous communities might look to it as a model for their own sovereignty. Can you unpack that statement for us?
A lot of Native Americans struggle to recognize the state of Israel as a sovereign indigenous nation, which it is, partly because of the history surrounding the revival of Israel, or the reestablishment of Israel, as I like to say, because, you know, it happened during a time that is referred to as the post-colonial era or the decolonial era, right after World War II. A lot of European empires withdrew from, I guess, what's the right term?
Their colonies?
Their colonies, yeah. And the way that the history is described is that that was decolonization. But
Right.
really what it was is either an exchange of power back to previous imperial powers, such as Arabs, or like America. It's not decolonized, right? They established or they declared independence, but it's still technically a colonial country. This was the same case during the decolonial era. And so I think what indigenous people here can learn is, one, Jewish people maintained a connection to their homeland through their culture, language, and peoplehood for 2,000 years, despite facing the same types of colonial violence that we have faced here, the same types of erasure and appropriation of our cultures and our identities, distortions of our identities. And instead of villainizing Israel for having to operate on the global stage with historically colonial or imperial countries, we really need to recognize the amount of strength and intelligence and strategy that went into Jewish people reclaiming their homeland after that long.
There was support on a global scale, you know, for the state of Israel when it was being born. There was support from
Right.
allies.
Yeah.
Yep.
There is no support
Yeah.
for Native Americans to have anything of their own or have any sovereignty. So that I think
100%.
So that's also a thing to say, like, whoa, it's, imagine that fight. Because, you know, my mother's husband does it. I know a lot of people in the community that are constantly doing this, you know, in politics. And it's just like, there's no support to push this through.
Yeah, I think the more than natives having to continue pushing for full sovereignty, America and international countries need to support indigenous nations here. It also took Jewish people 2,000 years
Yeah.
to position themselves to be able to reestablish Israel. We are, 500 years into our experience of colonization. And I think one of the most dangerous things that I see indigenous people weaponizing against Israel right now and against Jews is the diaspora period, and the fact that diaspora Jews returned to Israel. They target or hyper focus on European Jews, and without the recognition or the awareness that many indigenous people here in the US are living in diaspora, despite the fact we're within US borders. Many of us live in diaspora from our traditional territories. And to say that Jewish indigeneity expired after 2,000 years and they no longer have the right to sovereignty and self-determination also puts an expiration date on our sovereignty.
Do you think that maybe part of what one of the challenges is the fact that there are so many distinct tribes and they're not able to unify?
Yes, I think that is a huge factor.
And it's by design too. Like it was designed by the governments to displace us and pull us apart and be in competition for that stuff. Like it's so, I mean, we can't get into it. That's a whole other show, but like we're fighting like very highly designed specific ways to tear our communities apart. One of them was, you know, taking our children away, like way to destroy people and their community. So it's like everything was very specifically done. Take our food source away, take us away from our traditional territories. Like,
and when you say take the children away, that's the schools,
boarding schools, residential schools,
and like wiping out the culture from them.
Yeah, and wiping out the culture, and also, you know, traumatizing adults.
Right.
So you're kind of breaking this tie that, people just didn't recover from. It was very systemic and very specific. And that's hard. I remember my grandfather, we had this conversation. He said, why is it so hard for Native communities? Because he's coming from the lens of being a Holocaust survivor. Like, wow, look at what he accomplished, and look at what people accomplished after the Holocaust in the diaspora. And even look at Israel. Like he said, and it wasn't like anything cruel. He just said, why do you think it's so difficult for Native communities to kind of come back from this genocide? And I was like, you guys spoke Hebrew in the camps, and you celebrated the holidays in the camps. Like, you were able to still hold on to this language and the thing that like kept you guys Jewish. They killed you and they killed your family, but you still secretly were able to do that. When you take away the language and someone's understanding of where they come from and their culture, you destroy them. Like, the fact that we are still here and still like celebrating and thriving is insane, because it was such a different genocide, and
Right.
It's been so difficult to get anybody to recognize it. And I think from the conversations I've had in different communities, like, my grandfather got reparations. That helped him build his wealth. That helped him, I know there's Jews that didn't get reparations from the Holocaust, but like, there has been no reparations for our communities, for slavery, for like, these are things that helped, money isn't going to help everything, but it helped acknowledge this trauma that happened for people to kind of move forward in a way, even though it's
Sure.
terrible. But like, so I think these things, like, it's so hard to describe and quantify because there's so little that has been done. And I think that also breeds a lot of resentment towards Jews in terms of what we've been able to make the world aware of and get support for our trauma and our genocide. And so I can only imagine, because I used to feel like that. When I didn't identify as much as a Jew, and I was in a lot in the Native community, I felt very resentful that Jews had this ability to kind of come out of this trauma and succeed. And so I'm not saying that that's what people think, but I can see how there is a misunderstanding of our ability to succeed in certain ways, because we have had a lot of support from people to help us through the trauma of the Holocaust.
I
Sorry.
agree. I want to add to that by saying Jewish people, our culture and our way of preserving our identity and our culture, it evolved in a region that was very imperialistic. We had to adapt to a number of imperial societies trying to impose their laws and impose their systems onto us, and we were persecuted. That's part of what led to our oral histories and things being codified and being written down and being preserved. And by the time colonial violence landed on what's now American soil, it had been refined time and time again to the point where it was I don't even know how you describe it, but yeah, it's a system and a
Right.
structure that was a very well-oiled machine.
Right.
And the way that our cultures were eradicated here is quite different than what Jewish people experienced at the time of the onset of colonial violence or imperial violence 2,000 years ago.
Right. I said we'd get back to it. Now you brought us there, Sarah. Canada has tried in certain ways to, speak to this deep-seated issue, but you've described it as plugging holes into a boat that's sinking.
I said that?
You sure did.
Brilliant.
As the way that they're attempting
I still
to
agree
react
with
to
it.
this.
I stand behind it.
Yeah. When you say they're just plugging holes on a ship that's sinking, what do you mean by that?
The ship that's sinking is like the process which the government is trying to maybe cover their ass. But the sinking ship is reconciliation, I think, because it's very performative for a lot of people. I think it benefits people politically to say certain things to help them get reelected, and then they don't really do what they said they were going to do. I think there's just a lot of healing that needs to happen in the community. I think reparations are very important. I think that is the beginning of something, at least an attempt to say, we have gained so much from the land we took. We can't even quantify how much we've gained. And you don't have any of it.
Right.
The numbers that you talk about that should be owed for all of the land, that was destroyed through either, resource extraction, dam building, and just like land theft. Like the numbers can't compute for a government. Like you can't pay that money because it's been, hundreds of years of families and government benefiting from this. So, and then you can't take away the fact that there was just no wealth building. And then what do you do with people that haven't had wealth and you just give them money? That's not the answer. So I don't know what it is. I know there's, brilliant people that have ideas, but I just feel from the people that I know who work in those spaces that it's very far from where we need to be. And you still see it in our communities. I mean, we have an epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women, that's we have resource extraction that just doesn't care about the people who are living near that, and it's making our communities sick. There's just so much that could just be done to stop, but it's going to affect Canadians and it's going to affect Americans, and nobody wants to be affected. So it's big. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we can start by returning unceded territories that were claimed through treaty violations. The US government can restore indigenous authority over resource extraction, especially on tribal territories.
Yes, and also too, non-Indigenous people need to educate themselves and understand how much we've benefited from this, and know that that is every single person's responsibility, either to get to know the community or the land that you live on, and not in a performative way, really understanding, especially as Jews, the way that we wanted to be supported and we needed to be supported in our most desperate times, that we have these beautiful guides in our teachings to say, this is how you show up for community, even when it's not your family.
Okay, so when this episode airs, we will be days away from Native American Heritage Month.
It is what you make it.
Is it?
If it helps
does it feel like a
people-
performative thing, or does it feel like a
Well,
supportive thing that we want to celebrate?
It can be performative, or you can get it in the community and participate in Native American. I don't know what it's called here. Sorry, it's Native American Heritage Month.
Yes,
It's different
It's
in
an
Canada.
American thing. Yeah.
Just like anything, it can be performative, or we can make it not performative by actually engaging in community, finding out what's going on locally, and participating.
If anyone has kids in schools, I know from my experience, maybe it's changed. I hope it's changed. Native American History Month was often accompanied with the classroom dressing up as Native Americans. And, I had to sit there and watch everyone dress up in all around the classroom. So advocate at your schools against things like that. It's I don't know if I'd call it traumatic, but it's painful. It's painful to sit through.
Sarah, you are currently making the festival rounds with your film, The Floaters, about Jewish summer camp, co-starring BJJP alum Jackie Tone. Shout out to Jackie. Did you go to sleepaway camp, or was this?
I did.
Okay, right on.
I went to Shomria. It was Hashomer Hatzier. I went to sleepaway camp, and it was the best.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
what was it like getting to relive it?
It was so crazy. When I saw the script, I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen this on film before. That's so weird.
And do you play the director of the camp?
Yeah. And oh my gosh, and even setting foot on the camp that we shot at, it was it's all the same. It doesn't matter what city you're in. Jews do it the same everywhere. it was so wild and just so cool. And I just love that we can share like this Jewish joy of what that experience is, because it's so unique and so many people don't know about it. But yeah, I loved Jewish summer camp. It was just such a specific, experience that really, and also like Hashomer Hatzair, like we were just like little lefties. Like we were, oh my gosh, they would like wake us up in the middle of the night, like shaking the beds because it was like, this is so awful. It was like going, like marching us like to the camps. Like they wanted us to know the trauma that Jews went through. And we're like children and they're like winding, they're like winding us up and like getting us in lines and we're walking through the forest. Like it was like so.
What happened like at the end? And then they put us on a train and the train left the camp.
It's so terrible. We lit fire to, I can't remember this and someone's gonna just totally roast me. We walked into the main field and we lit, I don't know if it was like Chazak Ve'matz or something. We lit
some slogans
on fire, and it was kind of like it came to like we're here and we're surviving, but like we went through trauma. But it was just reminding kids like don't take this for granted. It sounds so horrible, and I may be misremembering it.
So we did something similar,
right?
But it wasn't the camps.
Maybe
it was
the camps. But
it was like it was a refugee thing for us.
Okay.
It was like they would wake you up in the night and be like, you have to grab your stuff.
Yes.
We have to go now. But like at the end, it would be like, they would take you in the night, but you'd end up in Israel. Was like the end.
So maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
And then yes. Oh my God. So
People
it was something like that.
cannot believe this is a thing. But it was a thing. I liked that program. This one is whacked out.
I remember. This crazy thing is that I did it as a counselor, and maybe I didn't even realize what I was doing to my
I don't know why they had us yelling Schnell at these kids.
I'm in my mind, this is what I thought it was, but it was totally this. It was about
good.
Israel.
All right, good.
Anyway, so that was really important to my development. But I think the beautiful thing about Hashomer was that when I bump into like Shomrim like around the world, or like people that I went to camp with, like we're all still very involved politically. It was something that was like taught to us at a very young age, and it's so beautiful to see like when you instill the importance of like community in kids, like they will run with it.
Yeah.
And that was really important. And I feel like that continuity that my grandfather spoke about, like my dad went to that camp, my aunt went to that camp, like my sisters went, like it was really something special.
Totally.
Yeah.
So Lani, what are you focused on right now, and do you have any projects in the pipeline you want to tell us about?
I do. I am working on a comprehensive critical analysis of settler colonial studies and the foundational essay written by Patrick Wolf, where I believe the narrative that Israel is a colonial state actually comes from. I'm hoping I will get that published within the next month.
All right, Professor, thank you. Okay, and as I like to do on my show, we're going to end things with a lightning round. Who makes better soup, Jews or Native Americans or First Nation?
You can't ask us that.
Sure I can. I can ask whatever I want.
I'm not going to answer because I'll get in trouble.
Okay, all right. Lani, you got
you're going to answer
I
it.
know native soup normally comes with fry bread, but then
matzo balls.
Matzo balls.
I can't decide.
Okay, everybody. All right, let's flip it to like what's a great native soup that we don't know about that you can inform this audience about.
I was thinking of corn soup.
my mom never gave the soup that she made names.
Or like stew.
Stew.
Like bison or venison. Yeah.
Okay, we love that. What is a Jewish tradition that you think native tribes should adopt?
Oh my God, these are very hard questions. Kvetching? Kvelling?
I would say being more open-minded to actually documenting, writing down our oral history and preserving it.
Yeah, love that.
That's a good one.
What is a native tradition that you think Jews should adopt?
Ooh, pointing with your lips. Just because it's funny.
Yeah.
Or your nose. We did our nose.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah. Love that.
And I feel like we'd
Yeah.
have good pointers.
yeah.
Yeah. If you had to sum up your Jewish identity in a word, the sort of the foundation of it, what would that word be?
I would say continuity.
Resilient.
Love it. What is a meaningful message that you've received from somebody?
So my first time in Israel at Hind's lab, there was a trans rabbi, and I can never remember her name.
I know who it is.
She was the very first person that told me that I'm allowed to be both Native and Jewish. And that was such a pivotal moment in my life and my understanding or my acceptance of myself.
That's awesome.
I'd say similar with Rabbi Shira when she told me not to say that I was half Jewish. I feel like that kind of unlocked this idea of my identity as well that just felt like it made sense to how I felt. It was kind of a reminder to be like, who cares what everyone says? Just do what you want to do.
Yes.
Just do what you feel.
Totally. All right, bring us home. Some final words for people who may be struggling to fit in or struggling with their identity or struggling even just to find the light in the world right now.
I've definitely found like throughout my career, I always tried to be, I'm going to simplify by saying like act more white, like as an actor. It was like, don't be Jewishy, don't be too native, like just act more what everybody wanted you to, what you want to be. Like, don't be silly, don't be obnoxious, don't, and I always felt like I just wasn't good enough. And then as soon as I like leaned into my weirdness and my own uniqueness is when my world kind of started opening up. So I would say instead of shying away from the things that you feel like make you different, I think the key is to lean into them and to harness them and to pet them nicely and to encourage
Caress them.
Yes, and just celebrate them. I think that's when my world kind of opened up.
Amen.
Yeah.
I would say celebrate yourself. You have enough people hating on you and causing self-doubt. We were talking about this in the back. I struggle with it constantly. I have such severe imposter syndrome from the position I'm in as being reconnecting. And when I give myself the leniency to understand the history of my own family and the traumas that we went through and what caused me to be in this position of having to learn all of my indigenous cultures and languages all over again, it gives me empowerment and strength. And so I think embracing the journey, not only your own journey, but the journey of your ancestors and the history that has led to you being all that you are.
Lani, Sarah, thank you both for your candor, for opening up your vulnerability, for teaching us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you to the Weitzman. Thank you to the BJJP team. Thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you, Sarah and Lani. That's our show. Good night, Philadelphia.